Welcome back to History of Simple Things. Today's topic comes from one of our viewers, Dwight Dees. Thanks for the great suggestion. You asked, how is copper tubing made? If you've ever fixed a leaky faucet, peeked behind your fridge, or watched a plumber at work, chances are you've come across those smooth reddish tubes weaving through our walls and appliances. That's copper tubing, an everyday item that plays a surprisingly crucial role in modern life. But how does raw copper go from a chunk of rock to the sleek, flexible tubes running quietly behind the scenes? Stick around as we trace the journey of copper tubing from deep underground to the heart of your home, right here, on History of Simple Things. Everything begins deep underground. Copper doesn't just lie around in neat little tubes, it starts out trapped inside rocky ores like chalcopyrite. These ores are dug out from open pit or underground mines, then crushed into tiny bits. But here's the thing, those crushed rocks still only contain a small percentage of copper, so the next step is to extract it. This is usually done through a process called smelting. The crushed rock is heated to extremely high temperatures in a furnace, where it releases molten copper from the rest of the waste material. But it's not pure yet. This early version is called blister copper, and it gets its name from the bubbling, blistered surface caused by gases trapped during the smelting. It's only about 98–99% pure at this point. To get the high-quality copper that tubing demands, it needs to go through one more purification stage, electro-refining. Imagine giant vats filled with an acidic solution, where blocks of impure copper are placed next to thin starter sheets of pure copper. An electric current runs through the solution, causing copper from the impure block to dissolve and redeposit itself atom by atom onto the starter sheet. Over time, what you get is incredibly pure copper, over 99.99% pure. Only this kind of copper is good enough for tubing, where reliability and resistance to corrosion are critical. Once the copper is purified, it's still not in tube form. It's usually turned into large logs called billets or into thick rectangular plates known as cakes. These pieces of copper are solid, heavy, and frankly not very tube-like. So the next step is to melt them down again and start reshaping them. The billets are heated in a massive furnace until they're glowing hot and semi-liquid. Then they're cast into what's called a mother tube, a thick, hollow cylinder of copper that will eventually be stretched and worked into thinner tubing. Alternatively, in continuous casting, molten copper is poured directly into molds that shape it into long, solid rods. These rods can then be pierced or extruded to form tubing. The method depends on what kind of tubing is being made, whether it needs to be soft and bendable or rigid and strong. Either way, the copper at this point is just getting its first hint of tubular life. Now comes the fun part, making the copper actually look like a tube. The copper log or hollow mother tube is heated again, and then it's pushed, using thousands of pounds of force, through a steel die. Think of it like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, except the toothpaste is red-hot metal. As it's forced through the die, the copper emerges in a long, continuous tube. This process is known as extrusion, and it's one of the most important steps in tubing production. The resulting tube is still thick-walled and not yet ready for real-world use, but it's getting there. To make the tubing the right thickness and diameter, it has to be drawn out further through a series of increasingly narrow dies. This is called the drawing process. Between each drawing step, the tubing is reheated in what's called an annealing furnace. Annealing softens the copper, making it easier to draw without cracking or becoming brittle. This combination of drawing and annealing is repeated several times until the tube reaches its final dimensions. By the end of this process, the copper is strong, smooth, and consistent in thickness, a perfect candidate for plumbing, refrigeration, or electrical systems. At this point, manufacturers decide what kind of final shape the tubing should take. If the copper is going to be used in residential plumbing, it's often cut into straight lengths, usually 3 to 6 meters long, and bundled for easy transport and storage. If it's meant for refrigeration or other applications that require flexibility, the tubing might be wound into tight coils. Coiled tubing is often used in HVAC systems because it can be snaked around tight corners and through narrow spaces. Before packaging, the tubing undergoes thorough inspection. Precision is everything. Every meter of tubing is checked for leaks, cracks, thickness, and dimensional accuracy. Some tubes are also cleaned inside and out to remove any residual oils or particles from the manufacturing process. In many cases, a light protective coating is applied to prevent oxidation during storage. Once all checks are done, the tubing is labeled, packed, and shipped out, ready to be installed in homes, offices, hospitals, or industrial machines. Now you might be wondering, why copper? Why not aluminum or plastic or some other cheaper material? Well, copper has this incredible combination of properties that makes it almost unbeatable in certain applications. It's naturally resistant to corrosion, which means it won't rust over time. It's also antimicrobial, making it a safe choice for water pipes. Most importantly, copper is incredibly good at conducting heat and electricity. That's why it's used in everything from air conditioners to heat exchangers to power cables. Even when other materials are available, copper tends to stick around because it works so well and lasts so long. There's also something beautifully sustainable about copper. It's 100% recyclable without any loss of quality. In fact, a lot of the copper tubing you see today may have started its life as old wiring, plumbing, or even coins from decades ago. The metal can be melted down and reused over and over, which is good news in a world where resource conservation is becoming increasingly important. So the next time you turn on a faucet, flush a toilet, or enjoy cool air from an air conditioner, take a moment to think about the copper tubing behind the scenes. It started as rock, was purified in vats, melted, squeezed, stretched, and coiled, all before ending up quietly doing its job in the walls around you. It's a perfect example of how much human effort and ingenuity goes into even the most ordinary parts of our lives. We don't always see it, but without copper tubing, modern infrastructure would look very different. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.